So hello everyone and welcome. My name's Hannah Beko, and if we haven't met before, it's really nice to meet you. And I'm joined today very excitedly by my sister Naomi. If some of you follow on LinkedIn or know me from other things, then you will have heard a little bit of our story, particularly Naomi's story. I was just a tiny part of it over the last 6 months. But it was partly because of that I wanted to talk about this topic, tackling the mental load for International Women's Day. And it seems to have resonated with a lot of people. So I hope you're going to find today's session useful. So let's get going. I'm going to pop my slide up and we'll get into it from the beginning. Let's go. Here we are. So, welcome to this session on tackling the women's mental load, particularly having a look at what the causes of it are and what we can do about it. That's what we really want to talk about today. And there you go, there's a little slide just to let you know. So what do we actually mean by mental load? What specific challenges do we face on a sort of daily, weekly, monthly, etc. basis? Talking a little bit about the emotions behind it and what drives different behaviours that then sort of impact on our mental load, the causes of it, and particularly, and what I hope we'll spend a good chunk of time on, is strategies for tackling this as well. Because I always say to people, I think understanding why we do something is sort of half the battle, and then understanding what we can do about it is the other half. So just very quickly in terms of introductions for those that don't know me or don't know Naomi. So I am, and I hate starting with this, but I always do because it's what I've done the longest. I'm a commercial property lawyer, done that for about 17 years. I'm also a mum of 3 boys who are 14, 10 and 6. And I've trained and coached lawyers and other professionals since about 2016. I through my, well, I guess we go through lots of these different periods of our life, but I went through my first sort of chronic stress bout and oh my goodness, I can't do this anymore period in 2015, 2016. And as a result of that, found lots of fantastic support and realized that other lawyers and other women professionals in particular might need some of that support too. So that's why I started the business training and coaching as well. And then Naomi, would you like to about you?
Yeah. Hello everyone. So I'm Naomi, Hannah's younger sister. My background was in veterinary nursing, which I did for 12 years before I joined Guide Dogs for the Blind. First in sort of a health and welfare role, looking after some of our training and working dogs. And then in the last 4 years, I've been working as an operations manager. So I've been line managing staff, one of our local sites northwest, and sort of working to meet production targets there. I'm really passionate about looking after staff, about making sure they've got the support and the skills and the tools that they need to do their jobs well and to enjoy their jobs. I've faced probably, I think it's fair to say, one of the most challenging times that I've ever experienced in the last 6 months. I've always been a very independent, very busy, very healthy individual. And after the birth of my second daughter in July last year, I became very unwell very quickly, and in September had to have 2 sort of life-saving surgeries. In October, I was diagnosed with a really rare form of cancer, which thankfully is very chemosensitive, and I've been receiving some wonderful treatment at a specialist centre over the last few months. But certainly it turned my life upside down, and what I expected from a maternity leave and a mentor work and getting back to everything that I know and I do, and I hope I do well, has been thrown up in the air really. So me and Hannah have certainly, as a family, as friends, as sisters, as women, we've had to support each other in ways we have never had to do before. I'm incredibly proud and grateful to have her as my sister, because she's literally stepped in and helped me with my family, helped my husband, helped me with my own I don't know, mental load, I suppose, managing that. How do I reevaluate what I'm doing, and reprioritize, and so yeah, we've certainly, I think it's fair to say we're a lot closer now than we've probably ever been. Um, and we've found that we do share a lot of similar, I don't know, how would you describe it? The way we want people to enjoy what they're doing and to, um, yeah, manage things in a way and share some of the tips and things that I suppose that we've picked up on over the last couple of months that have helped us, and see how other people manage things as well. Because life will throw curveballs, and there will be changes, and yeah, sometimes it's just how do we look at that? How do we manage that?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think that was that was sort of the twist on it is handling the mental load at all and normally on a day-to-day basis. But particularly, how do we handle it when something completely unexpected gets thrown at us as well? And that could be something unexpected in the work sense, in the health sense, family sense, financial sense, whatever it might be, is when these extra things are thrown on top of a really heavy plate already. So those are some of the things that we want to sort of address and talk about today, from our experience, from our experience over the years, working with other people as well. So that's us. Let's get into it now. So the first question I would like to start with this is, what do we even mean by the mental load? I think whatever topic we're talking about, it's good to start on the same page of what we're actually talking about here. So what do we mean by the mental load? And, it'd be great to have, any of your thoughts on this as well. Feel free to type them in the chat box. And just get us started, I suppose, the conversations we've had, and if you Google it or if you go onto YouTube and look for other trainings or talks about the mental load, generally speaking, what you tend to find, or certainly everything I've found, is around particularly home life for women. So, running the household, looking after the children potentially, or the partner, looking after other people within the home. But for me, as a working mom, woman, I think that's only half the picture, because I think we've got our work life as well as our home life, and we care about people in our home life, but we equally care about people at work. And I know something that we've been talking about a lot is, for me, it's the emotional load, because we carry the emotional load of those people we care about at home. But when we're that sort of person, we care about people at work as well. And I know from some of you who are on this webinar today, we tend to look after people at work. We might be team leaders or managers in name. We might just assume that responsibility. We might look after clients, or in Naomi's world, in the guide dog world, they have service users, and the dogs and the staff to take care of. So there's all these different people that we are trying to look after, and that takes a toll on not just our physical day-to-day work and how much work we actually have to do on a practical level, but the more important, I think, is the emotional level. It's that we're carrying the worry for those people, all the time. And that to me is
dropped down
what
those
with the mental load. So that's what we want to think about today. Is it's not just the practical stuff that's on our list. It's very much how we feel about it, and how heavy that feels emotionally. So some other thoughts that people have popped in as well. It's very many tasks we need to do. Juggling being professional and being mum. Absolutely. A massive thing is the mum guilt. We are going to talk about that. And feeling bad for even wanting a career. Oh my goodness, yes. The to-do list in your head, some of which isn't your responsibility. Isn't that interesting? So much is not our responsibility, or is certainly not solely our responsibility, but we take it and we carry it, and that's exactly what I mean. Being tired with the tasks, that you fall asleep at 9. Well, there's nothing wrong with going to bed at 9. I quite like going to bed at 8:30, 9 myself, because I like getting up early. But yes, I've also been that person who's falling asleep at 6 o'clock at night and thinking, goodness, this isn't good enough, because I've got to get the children to bed, and might still have some more work to do, and that sort of thing. So yes, thank you for those thoughts there. What we're going to go on to talk about is, I thought, it being a topic around International Women's Day, it's certainly important to talk about it as a gender issue as well, and to think about some of the causes for the mental load. Why why do we talk about it more specifically in relation to women? And why does it seem to be so much more of an issue for women potentially? And I think for me, we go back generationally, and so I'm sort of starting at the last bullet point here with societal and cultural expectations. If you think back generations and generations, it has always been the women who have tended to take care of people. You go back to early humans, and yes, the men went out and did the hunting, and the women were there looking after the children and the elderly and each other. It has been always part of our psyche, if you like, to look after everyone. And then you throw in that women, yes, have now been in the working world for 40, 50, however many years you want to so we're trying to have that place in the working world as well, while we're still trying to carry everything in a home situation as well. So it's that sort of double set of expectations, because in the working world we're still trying to prove ourselves, arguably. There's still the gender pay gap. There's all the other issues that get talked about around the time of International Women's Day, quite rightly. But we're carrying both. We're carrying the expectations on ourselves at work and the expectations at home. And something else that we've been thinking about quite a lot is it's not just generational and sort of human history, if you like, but there's even our personal histories. So histories within our families, were our mums stay-at-home mums and I know I've often said for my husband, his mum was a home mum. So for many years in our marriage, our relationship, he has had an expectation that I would be a stay-at-home mum like his mum was. And that's not me, and that's not the person I am. And as much as, on a logical level, he can shift that expectation, there is still something in there around, well, this is what I grew up with, and this is what I am used to, and I'm not used to this new world. So there's that history within the family. And then even more recently than that, there might be what we have done for the first 3 or 4 years of our family and our relationship, and then maybe that changes with our careers, with life, just with how things change. I think that was something we were talking about earlier, wasn't it? About even unexpectedly, like in your case, the roles have to shift.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, you don't see that coming, but there's really no alternative, and you might feel really uncomfortable with that shift. It's not something you planned or particularly wanted, but it has to happen, especially when there's the children involved. I think, you're talking about primary caregiver, and making sure that they do get that continuity of care. Then that has to happen. Unfortunately, yeah, it's that adaptation to that which can be really, really difficult, even though it is in their best interest.
Yeah, so there's these constant expectations, if you like, that I think we're dealing with. And then to the first 2 points I've put on here as well, this idea of perfectionism and fear of judgment, I think these are things that we put on ourselves. They might have come from family, they might have come from society, but we live with them. Even if other people said to us, no, we don't expect that of you, and we don't want you to do all those things, etc. There's our internal voices, that internal perfectionist who says, but yes, I used to do all these things, so I should still be able to do them. What will other people think of me if I can't, run the home, sort out everything for the children, and make sure all the bills are paid and the food is ordered and the clothes are washed, and also smash it at work with running the teams and meeting the budgets and meeting the targets and all those sorts of things. And of course, being a great friend and being a great daughter or wife or sister or whatever it is as well. We judge ourselves by really, really high standards. So I think it's worth understanding why we do these things and where it's coming from if we want to think about how we might change it. So I think understanding what might be stopping us is really important if we want to think about how we might change it in the future. Anything else to throw in there I've missed?
No.
Excellent. So what makes up the mental load? These are some of the things I know some of you mentioned in the chat box earlier, and this is really just a list, and you could add a lot more probably. So we've got the day job, whatever it is that we do every day for work. On top of that, we might also be, and I suspect for many of us, we might be managing teams or at least helping with that. Maybe we have budgets to worry about, maybe we have clients to worry about. Then we're trying to manage, as I say, household organization, whether that's paying the bills, organizing the decorators, whatever it is, dealing with the logistics of childcare, dealing with any financial planning, if we've got any parents who we also look after, all that sort of thing is thrown into it. And I think there's not just the actual division of labor. You could say, oh, between myself and my partner, it's sort of 50-50, but how much of it is still carried in our heads, even if someone else is taking care of it practically. We tend to still worry about it. And that's why I've put sort of the emotional labor, if you like, or the emotional heaviness at the bottom there. Because for me, that's what it is. I think, as I said at the beginning, it's not just the actual tasks on our plate, although that is heavy, it's a lot to do as well, but it's how they feel emotionally. Do they feel as though even if someone else is doing that practical task, I'm still worried about it, I'm still worried about the outcome, I'm still worried about how it impacts other people? So I think the mental load for me is really an emotional load, if you like, rather than just the physical tasks that we've got on our plate. So I want to get over to you having a think about where you are right now. And I think for those who can, it would be quite nice to maybe go into some little breakout rooms to have a think about this. So obviously, if you're not in a place where you can join a breakout room, then don't feel that you need to. But if you can, it would be great to perhaps have a discussion with one or two other people and think about the different roles that you play right now. So the sorts of things I'm thinking about are, if I was to give myself an example, it would be wife, mother, sister, daughter, friend, business owner, coach, team leader, supervisor to my new junior lawyer I've just brought on, head of mission at my firm, so all these different roles that I play. And some of you might maybe be on committees or voluntary. In fact, I even always forget that I'm a non-executive director of a wonderful charity called Brain Health Breakthrough. All these different roles that we play, even if sometimes they only need us a few times a year or maybe need us a lot more. What different roles do you play? So it would be great if you could, grab your pen and paper and make a list of those. And if you can join a breakout room with others to just have a bit of a chat about what you've got on your list. Hello, everyone. Welcome back as people come back. I'm sorry that I know there were one or two. I tried to move you around so that everybody was in a room with somebody. So I know one or two perhaps didn't make it. I tried to see where everybody was and move you around. It'd be good to just pop in the chat box there, some of you. I suppose the question I always like to ask people with this is, how many did you have on your list? When you look at all your different roles, the hats you wear, if you like, what sort of numbers are we looking at? How many things did you have there on your list? If you can pop in the chat box. It's always interesting to see the range of numbers.
Hannah, can I just say that was actually really helpful to go into a room and just to offload for like 4 minutes.
Oh, bless you.
Sorry, it's Karen. But yeah, no, it's really, I found it
Was
really,
it?
I found it really lifting that you can share that in your normal workday, which you ordinarily wouldn't do.
Yeah, I've got another chance to have a chat with somebody at the end as well. So I'm glad you've had that chance to do that. And that's why this conversation matters, is because we don't stop and think about it very often. And we often think that other people don't feel the same way we do. And that's part of the problem. It's part of almost the perfectionist and the fear about admitting that we can't, or we're struggling to carry it all and do it all. Now, that's where the problem comes from, is feeling that we're somehow missing something, or that we're not good enough because we can't carry it all without complaining, or without breaking down or whatever. Problem comes from. And actually 70 people sign up for this, and the number of people that are here today, and the number of people that have expressed an interest in talking about this topic, shows that none of us are alone in carrying this. for me, strategies and dealing with it, yeah, great, and we're going to share some with you. But actually, what's super important is just to know that no, it's not just me. I'm not a failure. I'm not the only one struggling with this. Other people are too. And that's massive, I think. Yeah. So if going to have that little conversation helped with that bit, then that's fantastic. I'm really, really pleased. Yeah, these conversations are things that you could have with colleagues, friends, in workplaces, etc. So has nobody's been brave enough yet in the chat box to type the number of things they had on their list? Maybe you didn't get to that conversation. Maybe you were busy sort of, this is how I feel about this topic, in which case that's fine as well. But generally speaking, when I sort of talk to people about this exercise, we get thing from sometimes 7, as low as 7, up to sort of 9, 13. I think what year was 19 roles and hats. And what's really important about it, I think, is it just gives you a glimpse of why you might feel tired, why you might feel that you're carrying so much is because of that number of roles that you take responsibility for, the things that are your job, if you like, on top of the day job, the family, any health concerns you may be carrying, or looking after other people. I know somebody put in the chat box about responsibilities of, yes, not just demanding jobs, but families, older family members, getting them the medical care and help that they need. And we understand personally that journey as well, ourselves. So yeah, there's a lot. And on top of all that, you have a day job to do, maybe member think about, and other people to think about. And I've even got the dog, and Naomi has 2 dogs, so there's the dogs as well. It's just, yeah, there's a lot. And hopefully that exercise showed you why it might feel like there's a lot. And I just want to sort of go on with a second piece, if you like, to that exercise, which again, you might not think about now, but is something you can take away with you, which is this idea that with all those rules and with all the hats that you listed out there, we sometimes give them all equal attention or equal energy. And that's something we're going to come on to talk about in a minute. Whereas what you might want to think about is who needs to be in your inner circle and who can be in your outer circle. Because what we tend to do when we're trying to look after everyone is we bring everyone into our inner circle. So that would be not just our close family, maybe close friends, but it would be things like our clients, our boss, our team members, all of our friends, the charities that we work for or support or whatever. We end up with them all trying to be in our inner circle. So the ones that get the best of our time and energy, whereas actually a number of people probably shouldn't be in that inner circle. They should probably be a bit further out, and that will change as well over time as to who's in our inner circle and who's in the outer circle. But it's just worth thinking about the number of roles you have on your plate and how much time and energy each of those get. And are some of them getting too much, too much of your time, too much of your energy? Could someone help you with some of those roles? Could they be delegated? Could they be shared? Could you step down from some of them? You're going to hear in a moment when we, Naomi sort of started the story, but we're just going to give you the 2 flip sides of story. And you'll hear in a moment how on my list of roles, there was certainly, wife, mother, business owner, etc. Whereas on the, 17th of September or something like that, 17th of September last year, I effectively had to stop being a wife and a mother because I was needed elsewhere, and I was barely a business owner, and I certainly wasn't there for friends and things like that. I say that because often we look at our list of roles and think that they're non-negotiable. Well, I'm a mum, so of course I'm a mum. I'm a carer for somebody, so of course I'm a carer for them. But sometimes things can be different. They can be changed, and we don't question it enough often. So it's just worth thinking about if there's something on that list that needs to be changed or deprioritized, maybe to give you a bit more time and energy. I don't want to spend any time particularly on this because I think you all know it well. What is the impact on us of carrying this heavy mental load? Yes, stress, anxiety, depression, if it goes unchecked. Physical health issues like fatigue and sleep problems with the worry and obviously the stress and anxiety, plus just the busyness, as someone said, it's just trying to get everything done in the day. And then the impact on our personal and professional life, because we are tired, exhausted, we don't have the energy, or also we don't feel that we can go for promotions and things like that. We feel as though because we've got all of this on our plate, maybe I can't step up in the world of work when we might want to. So huge impact on us. As I say, I don't need to spend any time on that because I think you're all very well aware of it. What I think is interesting, as I mentioned earlier, is about understanding why we do this. So yes, there are society factors, there's historical cult factors, then ourselves. And some of the behaviors we'll see is that we don't feel able to say no to things. We don't feel that we can ask for help because that would be in some way weak or showing that we're not strong and independent and able to do it all ourselves. And also this idea of we don't want to give up control or share the control. We want to be the ones who are bringing up our children and handling everything in the house and handling everything at work. We tend to be those sorts of people who want to do everything. But can we? That's the question, is can we actually do it? Do we have the energy? And probably not a lot of the time. But why do we feel we can't say no? Why do we feel we can't ask for help or give up control? And it's worth understanding the emotions behind that. And it'll be different for everyone, but it usually looks something like afraid. I'm afraid what will happen if I say no. I'm afraid if I ask for help, what people will think about me, or will they think I'm not so strong and capable? And does that mean they'll stop asking me? Maybe I wouldn't get that promotion at work or stay in that managerial role if I said that actually I need to work less hours or I need some more help. Maybe they would judge me differently and not leave me in that role. And what would other people think if I wasn't looking after my children so much or wasn't baking the cakes for the cake sale? But we care so much about what other people think and whether they accept us, whether they'll judge us, whether they'll criticize us. And often it's those emotions that tend to drive these behaviors. And it's worth each of us trying to sort of understand, what is it that we're really afraid of? If we went to that worst case scenario, if I said no to that, what would happen then? And then what would happen then? And what would happen then? And it's often not as bad as we think it would be. But without checking that, we still drive behavior to not ask for help and to not take things off our plate. Anything you throw in there?
No, I think it's doing it regularly as well, isn't it? We said before, it's like doing it over and over again, really, not just periodically, because things will sneak back in and old habits die hard. And sometimes it is worth just revisiting, what is it that I'm actually worried about if I step down from that? Why do I feel guilty about stepping away from that? And I think we talked about the other day was sometimes actually what we hadn't realized is that by stepping away, you're actually allowing someone else to step forward. You're actually allowing opportunities for the people to do that thing that perhaps you don't have the time or the energy for at that particular point, or they might even have different skills to bring to the table. And sometimes I hadn't thought of it like that. Sometimes thought, I must be involved, but it's not always the right thing for you at that point, and it could actually be far more beneficial for somebody else.
Yes, absolutely. I would always with people that on my originally when I did this years ago, I was very involved in the church. So I was running the mother and baby group. I was on the PTA. I was running the quarterly meetings to make sure they didn't run out of money. I did all those things. And when I saw all that on the list, plus I had 2 young children trying to start a new business, I thought, I've done this for 5 years. It's time for someone else to have a go. So I stepped down from all those roles over time. They needed notice, etc. But the person who came in and filled them did an amazing job. What she on to achieve in that role is something I never would have had the time or the energy to do. Sometimes it's about stepping back and actually letting other people take those roles. But as people have said in the chat box, there's a fear of if we drop a role, and that fear is an emotional burden. Absolutely. The worry of worrying completely, not being able to ask for help because we're so stressed we don't know what help we need. That is very true. That is very feel like asking for help sometimes feels like another task. Yeah. I think when we do feel overwhelmed, and I'm going to share, it's certainly resources that I will send out afterwards, but I'm hoping to get a minute to mention it at the end as well. When I talk to people about overwhelm, that is the thing. The difference between overwhelm and stress is that when we're in overwhelm, we can't actually make decisions. We feel as though we've actually got all these things on our plate, and I just can't make a decision. I'm looking at all these different things, and stress is one thing, but we can keep working generally through stress. But overwhelm is when we're stuck. We look at it and just say, I don't even know where to start. And that is true. Asking for help gets caught up in that as well. So we'll have a quick word about some strategies for that as well. And then I've got some bits I want to send out to you afterwards as well. Now, I don't know if this video is going to work. It's only a minute long. Some of you have seen it already. I just think it's a break from listening to us for a second, and it tells a little bit of the story of what's happened to us as a family since July last year. So let's see if it will play. So, yeah, I feel like we've sort of woven the story in as we've gone through already. So to sort of just pick up on the points, I guess, from me for in the emotional load, and it's about the expectations that we put on ourselves, as we've sort of mentioned throughout. And I suppose my message is, don't wait for things like this to happen, to have to reassess everything that's on your plate. So I say, before, in the run up to September, yes, I'm at home, I'm a mother, I'm a wife, I'm running 3 businesses, and then saying I'm busy and I haven't got a lot of time, and all those sorts of things. And then when you get that phone call to say that your sister's had a scan and they found multiple brain tumors, and then that life is going to be different. I went to my eldest and to my husband and I said, whatever is needed. Naomi had a 10-week-old gorgeous baby and a 3-year-old, and I said, whatever those girls need, I will be there for them. What we didn't know is that within 4 days it was all going to change very drastically, and 4 days later we almost lost Naomi. And she was very poorly in hospital for quite a while. And so literally I moved to my parents and looked after particularly the baby, because she'd only had mum up until then. And I thought, well, if she can't have mum, the next best thing is to have one who sounds a little bit like her. And it asked me before on a list of roles what I could have changed or done differently. I would have told you I didn't think I could, and yet when it came to it, it actually all went out the window to a large extent. And although I've talked about stress coping measures since having chronic stress years ago, to put those into practice as quickly as I did in September and since then as well. And I think you've had a different experience of handling the mental load since then, haven't you?
Yeah, it's very similar to what you say. You know, you do where you think this is stress or this is for the people or for health. Yeah, certainly when you become unwell, for anyone who has had some health challenges, you do suddenly realise where your energy and your time, where you want it to go, as opposed to where it does go, and really looking at that to sort of say, well, okay, if I don't have the energy to do, make sure the house is pristine or do the shopping and spend time with my children, then I'm going to make sure I save that energy to spend with my children. And that's something I'm going to have to, well, I've had to learn, but I'll have to keep reminding myself, certainly for the next 6 to 12 months. And I'm hoping it's something that will, you know, better. But it will have been very good at before, and I've had to learn, not just for my sake, but for my whole family, and learning, you know, yeah, how do I shift this worry as well, because obviously that does come with feeling poorly and not having energy, but it's all those other things that you worried about before are still there, and then obviously things get added to that as well, and it's keeping on top of that, and certainly I've had to learn some coping mechanisms in the last few months about how to deal with that.
And that's what we're going to share with you now, hopefully, so that you've got something you can take away from our experiences. Maybe they're things that you've heard about before, maybe you're already doing them, maybe you know about them and you've not been doing them for a while, so maybe this is just a nice little reminder. So some of the main points we thought in terms of how to address the mental load is, yes, have a look at your roles and responsibilities, definitely. Are there things on there that other people could help you with, potentially? Saying you're going to go and ask for this help right now, but are there things that other people could help you with? Looking for support, you know, we said professional support there, maybe it is counselling support, whatever that sort of thing is, and peer group support is massive. That's what, you know, one of you said, even going into a breakout room for 2 or 3 minutes here and just being able to share with somebody, massive help. And so looking out for those peer support, whether you know, women's groups, parents groups, whatever they are, whether you find something or join something else, it's a massive help to be able to talk to those support groups. In fact, I know with Naomi's treatment, you know, you've always said, and in fact it was advice we were given very early on, the support groups are really useful, and we've always found that as well. Then there's the big one, setting boundaries and prioritizing self a bit more time about that. And because Naomi has some specific strategies she wants to share with you that she particularly used in those very early days of being very unwell.
Yeah, we've spoken quite a bit about this, really, because it's something that actually one of the nurses in the first hospital I spent some time in said to me, sort of each morning he would come in and say, what's important to you today? And it's such a simple question, but it really resonated with me when I was recovering, because there's all these things going on around you. So much is out of your control. So much you're being told will have changed or is going to change. And there's a lot of fear, a lot of unknown. And I think just to be able to say to someone who's genuinely asking you, you know, what's important to you today, to be able to answer that and for someone to action that, it's just so important. And it's something that I still do. I'd like to say daily. I'd like to do it daily. That's something I want to do, but certainly a couple of times a week now. I still wake up and one of the first things I think is what's important to me today as part of my rehabilitation. What is important, and as part of that, it sometimes gets split into kind of like 2 lists almost, or 2 sections. And I've always thought that journaling can be really therapeutic, and I know it's not for everybody, but if you've not tried it for a while, I certainly would recommend it. But to be able to down and write, well, this is what I'm worried about today, actually, what I've woken about in the night, or I've woken up this morning thinking about, I need to just get it out there. So I'm not bothered how it looks on paper. I'm not necessarily going to read it to anybody else. This is what I'm worrying about. And the other flip side of that is I also would write almost like a gratitude journal, really. And this is something I do try and do daily. because there is challenges. We all have challenges, we all have setbacks, we all have concerns and worries. And I think to be able to say, but today actually I'm really grateful for this person or this conversation, or this bit of news I've had, or this decision that I've made, or this one thing I've shifted that now I'm not worried about. I think it's really, really powerful. I mean, I'm certainly no stranger to an MRI scanner the last 6 months, but my husband reminds me quite often that people who actually complete gratitude journals, there's actual positive changes within the brain seen on MRI scanners, which I just find absolutely amazing. So I think it is really powerful. I found it certainly a really good tool, and it just helped to balance things out a little bit. I found personally.
Well, and some of you I know have been to one of my workshops before, and I know Naomi has. I didn't think she'd been to this one, but perhaps she has with some of the things she said there about journaling. But yeah, gratitude, not just the changes on the MRI scanner, but there's a lot of research in relation to the health of your heart as well. If you practice gratitude, whether that's writing it in a diary, whether it's just thinking of 3 things you're grateful for that day before you go to sleep, there are studies that show it improves the health of our heart. So yeah, I'm a huge advocate of thinking of things to be grateful for each day, and particularly not in a general sense, not just the roof over your head, your family, your job. It's the small things from that day. That's what makes gratitude really, really powerful. Is it's that friend I saw for lunch today, it's that cup of coffee I had when I was really exhausted, and even on tough days, that's when this is really, really powerful, is looking for those tiny little super powerful. But I really liked this idea that Naomi shared, where she almost has 2 lists. One is the worries and the fears, and you may just literally mind dump those out, brain dump out everything that you're thinking about, everything that you feel is on your list, your worry list. And then you think about some of the overwhelm guide, and that's one of the things I'll send out to you afterwards. That's very much what this is. It starts off with a dump down on a piece of paper everything that's in your mental to-do list, work related, home related, paying those bills, ordering the shopping, getting the birthday cards, all the things that you've got to do for work. Dump them all down paper, and then you can start thinking about, well, actually, could I delegate any of this? Can anyone help me with this? Does this really matter? Or am I just holding on to something that's never going to happen, but perfectionist, I'm thinking about it. A great one was somebody saying to me, she kept coming up with, I've got to buy a congratulations card for one of my newly qualifieds in my team. She said it came up every day for her. And I said, well, when did she qualify? And she was like, it's gone. Get her an anniversary card instead. But we do hold on to these things, and so sometimes just dumping them all out, then we can have more of an assessment of what actually needs to be done. And so that's always my tip for people who do feel that state of overwhelm that someone mentioned earlier. I think it was Sarah, when she said sometimes I don't even know where to start. That's always my tip for people, is literally take a piece of paper, dump it all down on that piece of paper, and even in that exercise it will help you through some of the things that real to day, and some of the things that you can maybe let go of. So that is a really good tip. The other thing we just wanted to talk about was this idea of allocating our energy, and linked with asking for and accepting help. But you were given a nice strategy for thinking about your energy, weren't you?
Yeah, I know recently that the specialist team I've been under sort of said, don't expect to finish your treatment, go home and carry on as normal as before. Really, it will take quite a long period for you to make choices really between what you spend that energy on. And it is very much like that now. And I still put an awful lot of pressure on myself to say, well, before I could do X, Y, Z, I had a full-time job, and I would be doing this around the house. I'd be responsible for all these different things here. I'd have a couple of voluntary roles as well. And now it's literally a case of, well, hang on, my energy I want to keep for spending with my children. It might be that the house isn't as clean and tidy as it was before. The wash basket is rarely empty. And I probably haven't done a food shop for quite a long time, but it is just sort of saying, but hang on, the energy that I do have today, I really want to spend on the children. I don't want to be grumpy when they get back from nursery and preschool, I want that quality time with them. And the same for the weekends, I want to save that as well. Obviously, I've had to shelf work for a while, and that's normally quite a big priority of mine as well. But it's more about that recovery and yeah, certainly prioritising and asking for help, which I've never been good at, but this has absolutely forced me into it now. And yeah, accepting that and being really grateful for those people who have stepped forward. Yeah, it's been challenging.
Yeah, I want to sort of add there, because it's very easy for us to put these things on a slide, and it's very easy for us to sit here and say, yes, you know, you have 10 cups of energy a day, so think about where you want to spend that energy. And you're like, yeah, I get that, you know, logically, mentally, I get that, but it's really hard for me to do. And that's what I want to say. We get that. This is really hard to do. It was easy to do, we'd all do it, and we wouldn't be sitting here thinking about this topic. Say, actually, I don't have energy to do X, Y, and Z. I don't have energy to clean the house as much as I want to, you know, because I can say this about Naomi because I grew up with her. She's the tidy one out of the three of us. If I borrowed anything from her room and took it back at night, she would get out of her bed to put it back in the right place. I wasn't allowed, you know, I would say to her, no, don't get out of bed. Show me where it goes. No, I have to do it. She is absolutely the tidy one. And so for her to say sometimes the house just has to be a mess, like she's saying that through gritted teeth, it's really hard. But so none of this is easy to do. And I guess what I'm trying to say is try it, even though it's not easy. It becomes a little bit easier, but it won't be easy to start off with. It's not easy to ask for and accept help. You know, my parents recently hired a cleaner at home, and even the day the cleaner started, my mum sat there in tears saying, I should be able to do this. I should be able to clean my house. I said, I know, Mum, I felt the same when I started getting a cleaner in, but now 10 years later, literally, she's one of the most important people in my life. And every time she puts her prices up, I'm like, of course, you know, absolutely. And it was funny because even that day, as Dad's new cleaner left, and I said to Mum, oh, would you like her to come back next week then? She's like, oh, yeah, definitely. Did she like us? Is she going to come back? So it's hard sometimes to take that step and ask for help, but it does get easier. And so, as I say, I'm not going to ask you to wait until you feel ready for some of this. I'd like to try and do it anyway, to step outside of that comfort zone anyway, because if you wait until you're ready, it would probably never happen, is what I sort of wanted to mention there. So again, these are the top tips we sort of shared. You know, having at your list responsibilities, who could you share them with? Who could you possibly delegate them to? Again, I'm not saying it's going to be easy to do that, but what options do you have there? And then this idea of setting boundaries around what you say yes to, what you say no to, and creating a little bit of that time that is for you to think about what is important to you, even just getting enough sleep, even having some time to do the journaling exercise we mentioned, or the big favorite of mine is always meditation. Again, so much science around how that helps you to not just reduce stress, but to be able to prioritize better, to be able to rest your body, to take you out of that stress state. Meditation is a huge one for that as well. And yeah, asking for help, which I think we've talked about a bit there. So what I want you to have a few minutes to do now, if you can, is just think about what you, and I know some of you have already made some suggestions in the chat, you know, a tiny thing, you know, don't do a big, I would say to people, don't choose a big thing because that's really hard, but what small thing, what small first step might there be for you? And then the second part is there any other strategies that work for you that we haven't mentioned? So if you have got time to stay with us for a few more minutes, then I'm going to give you a chance to have a chat with somebody else in the breakout room. Hopefully you can stay for that. If you've got any questions or anything as well, do pop those in the chat box. If you don't join a breakout room and you want to share with us here, then that's also brilliant as well.
We were just talking about things that we do to help us manage stress, that we know are really good, but that also sometimes tail off. And maybe it's a case of reframing those things, like going to the gym, so it doesn't feel like an indulgence, but it's actually something that has a positive impact on everybody around us. And we also talked about the difficulty of getting out of current habits and changing their trajectory, even by a degree. Those habits that you have offer some sort of comfort, even though they're not completely fail-safe. And we were also talking about how we think about the impact of us asking things of others on them when they are already stressed. So yeah, it was a useful conversation, probably.
Ooh,
one
interesting.
afternoon.
Much in there, Victoria, and actually I might ask Naomi to mention something we were just talking about earlier about asking people for help and the impact on them as well. But a few things that I think come up in what you've just said. So first of all, the whole thing about the gym or whatever it is that we tell ourselves we're going to do, when we have these sort of perfectionist yes to everything tendencies, it's like, well, if I can't get to the gym for an hour, I'm not going. Therefore not doing. It's like all or nothing. Whereas actually, if the point of going to the gym is to get a little bit of exercise so we're a tiny bit healthier, then even a 5 or 10 minute walk ticks that box, or a few yoga stretches or whatever. I'm not saying don't go to the gym for an hour, absolutely do if that's what you've got time for, but I think sometimes the all or nothing stops us from doing anything at all. So that's one to be wary of. And the other thing, the whole doing we know works and then watch that one, because as we sort of said right at the beginning, there's so many, not just personal but cultural, generational, whatever reasons why we don't take enough care of ourselves. And for me, there's a self-sabotage thing that comes in. It's like, okay, I'm going to take care of myself, but then after a while we stop. Why? Because deep down somehow we still don't think that we're worth it, so we stop. So it's definitely worth just keeping an eye on the reasons that we do or don't do things, because that might help. But yeah, the point about you know, asking other people for help, we were talking about, weren't we? And that sometimes they want to help.
Yeah, and is it almost like you're throwing it back in their face sometimes? And I've always really struggled to accept any help. I was like, no, I can do absolutely everything on my own. And because I was always a bit of a control freak, probably still am to some extent, it was like, well, I wouldn't want someone else to do that, whether it's a work thing or something with my children or even something with my dogs, because there's a certain way that I would do it, or a certain thing in the house, and I don't want to relinquish that to somebody else. Whereas, yeah, now I sort of think, well, actually, you know, I will have to accept that. I do need that. I'm very grateful for that. And actually, it brings a different dimension into something. It's actually making that person feel, you know, like they're really able to help me out in a real practical or emotional or both, in a way, which I've realised for people close to me that you know, they've really wanted to do that, and to accept that has actually brought us, you know, quite a bit closer together, really. So there is certain people that I certainly wouldn't be without now. But ask me 6-12 months ago, would have I accepted them? But yeah, they're absolutely valuable to me now. And it is still hard for me to think, well, okay, they're looking after them instead of me at this point. But it's just had to be the way it's been, because sometimes it's just, I've realised it's bigger than me and how I feel about it and my pride. It's going to be, you know, well, they need caring for, and that's the right person to do that, or this needs to be done and I can't do it. So yeah, it is accepting that over and over again. I don't think it's easy at all. I completely relate to that, but yeah, I have realised that it is sometimes for the greater good of someone or something else, and also that person that's offering to help as well.
Yeah. So sometimes sometimes it can be a gift to let other people help. Like sometimes they really mean it when they want to help, and it can be good for them. So rather than us sort of prejudge whether they could help us or want to help us, sometimes we just have to ask and where we go. Yeah, Absolutely. I'm just having a look in the chat to see if there was anything else. If anybody, you know, wants to unmute as well and share anything that they're going to take away and do differently from their group, that would be brilliant. Who's waving? Julie, hello.
Hi, am I unmuted? Am I unmuted?
No, go ahead. You're
I'm going
unmuted.
to take
Yes.
away from today. I was in a group with Sarah, and she made a point that she did a whiteboard of 100 things that she had to do and got cross. And I get cross because my husband and daughter don't think like me, and I expect things to be done, and then it's not done, and then I get cross. And so I had a chat with my husband, and I've given him a list of jobs, and he just did them willingly. So I'm going to add to the list, and I'm going to give my daughter, who's 19, jobs to do, because what's resonated with me is they probably see me always in a hurry, always stressed, cross, when they want to help, but they don't know what to do. When simply saying to my daughter, will you wash the dishes after dinner? She'd probably do it willingly. They're just not proactive. And I get grumpy when I'm off today. I'm going to do a big list, and I'm going to let them choose what they'd like to do off the list. And I think they'll want to help, and I've just excluded
That is such
them.
a good idea.
Yeah. So thank you. Thank you.
We do. When we're like superwomaning, you know, and we're like, I can do everything, I'm the strong, independent, determined one, and there's one right here. People don't want to like step on their toes or get in their way or upset them, so they don't know what to do to help. But your list, I've heard this from someone else before. They said, you know, their husband wanted to help with some jobs, but whenever they talked about it, they got into like a fight about it. So what she'd do instead is she'd write down everything that she needed to do the next day and leave it on the table. And her husband would just go along and do what he could and cross it off. So they didn't have to talk about it because that caused issues, but it still got done. And I thought it was such a good idea. So yes, sometimes if we just share, and it's like, they don't have to do it as well as us. They don't have to do it in the same way that we would. Oh, yeah. I like that. Yeah. Might not be perfect, but it's still then off our plate and someone else can help. I love it. I love it. Thank you all. Thank you so much. And those of you who've stayed on a bit longer as well, lovely to have you stay with us. As I say, I've got a few extra bits and bobs, the overwhelm guide, got some boundaries, etc., that I will drop out on an email to you as well. But yeah, thank you so much for coming and spending your lunchtime with us and for thinking about this difficult topic as well. So thank you, and I do hope it's been really useful for you as well.
Thank you very much, and thank you for sharing.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Take care,
Brilliant.
everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
You're so welcome.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Bye. Bye. Bye.